Day 1187 of the Ukrainian War Map, also known as the Russo-Ukrainian War. Juzzie here, and today is another update as I take a simplified and down-to-earth approach to some of the most important happenings on the ground in Ukraine. So starting off, we'll take a look at those Russian losses, as currently Russia sits on more than 980,000 military personnel losses, representing an additional 1,020 in the past day. Then as for hardware, 2 tanks, 11 APVs, 68 artillery, and a further 2 air defense systems coming out of yesterday's loss update, which included the short-range Tor M2 and the medium-range and $45 million apiece Buk M3 Telar unit. And then also to mention on this list, 190 UAVs down, similar in number to the 200 plus that the AFU neutralized yesterday, and being figures that these days heavily contrast to Russian ballistic and cruise missiles fired into Ukraine. As 2025 stands, gone are the days of Russia regularly firing over 100 cruise missiles per nightly volley of attacks. And for an aerial threat, which is comparatively far more destructive in nature than their Shahed drones, we first learned something was amiss with Russian missile stocks quite some time ago, when the downed wreckages of Russian missiles revealed increasingly recent production dates on their internal components. And so, since those peak fire rates from well over 12 months ago now, Russia has struggled to maintain such a frenetic pace, now firing at a significantly reduced rate. You could justifiably say that they short-sightedly shot themselves out of about 5,000 surplus missile stocks, with subsequent firing rates significantly reduced, and some days not at all, with now only seeing, at best, a volley of 30 to 50 missiles per night attack, but even then, that's only happened about 3 or 4 times this year so far. Then headed across to the map, into Russia, and to the audacious capability now in demonstration by the defending Ukrainian nation in the SMO. And for something that Russia had once upon a time never expected to see as an outplaying dynamic in this war, an almost constant stream of return fire one-way attack UAVs flying back into the Russian territory. With overnight, drones reported flying into Kursk, Bryansk, Belgorod, Lipetsk, Tula, Ryazan, the Tambov region, Rostov and Moscow, just to name a few. And so to the Tver Oblast of Russia, where Ukrainian forces launched a drone swarm against Russia's Migalovo airbase, a distance from Ukraine that is over 800 kilometers for its flight path. Multiple explosions rocked the site, home to several heavy transport aircraft. A strong fire erupted near the military unit, with initial reports suggesting that the Russian air defenses may have accidentally shot down their own Tu-95 strategic bomber during the attack, although difficult to verify. We do see a ground impact by the airbase, followed by secondary explosions moments later. When you zoom in, you'll notice a flurry of fireworks-like bursts coming from the direction of their outbound air defense fire. As for the location target, the base is home to a number of strategic military transport aircraft, for example, including the IL-76, the Antonov AN-22, and the AN-24. Meanwhile, and during all of these events, in Moscow, where at least 10 Russian Ministry of Defense aircraft had taken off during the aerial incursions, flying away from the capital and certainly headed in the safer northeastern direction, getting out from under UAV attacks. Then headed further south on the map, where drones destroyed an electrical substation in Urazovo in the Belgorod region, as part of Ukraine's ongoing strategy to disrupt Russian military operations by targeting this type of key infrastructure. Similar attacks in the past have occurred, cutting power to facilities supporting Russia's war efforts. Also on the map, to Oriol, where a Russian Mi-8 military helicopter crashed and burned near the village of Narishkinko, coming down hard on an abandoned industrial site and igniting barrels that once held chemicals. Eyewitnesses say the aircraft suddenly lost altitude and plunged, with Russia media citing an engine technical malfunction as the likely cause. This marks the 5th Mi-8 engine failure in Russia so far this year, a pattern that's turning deadly routine. But it's who was on board that's turning heads. The crew reportedly belonged to Russia's elite, the very pilots who in 2014 evacuated the Russian-exiled former Ukrainian president Yanukovych. Their elite resume didn't stop there. They fought in Syria and took part in the high-stakes Hostomel raid outside of Kyiv in 2022. It's a force that once traded on its reputation for reliability and elite operation, now leading to a hard fall from prestige. As for the technical malfunction, likely one of two things. Either it's those Russian Klimov engines that were used to replace that of the engines from the long-time Ukrainian helicopter engine supplier Motorsish, with Ukraine closing sales to Russia after the initial invasion. Following the engine supplier switch, Russia officially presented the new Klimov engines as an improved version of the Ukrainian Motorsish engines. However, there has been persistent reports and evidence that the VK2500 engines have nowhere near matched the original Motorsish engines in reliability, durability, or manufacturing quality. Now, aside from all of that, supporting the existing fleet of Ukrainian engines has been a nightmare, forcing operators to quietly seek Motorsish parts through intermediaries or dodgy second-hand aviation black market channels, leading to mounting maintenance headaches and a higher risk of in-flight failures across Russia's aging helicopter fleet. Then next to Tula, where the UAV wave took its toll on the Azot chemical plant in Novomoskovsk earlier today. Key facilities including the Ammonia 2, Urea 2 and Workshop 5A units, along with the acid storage tanks, had sustained damage. Then to a quick update from last week, where drone strikes have repeatedly targeted the Energia plant in Lipetsk, causing significant damage. Satellite imagery confirms the precision targeting and extent of the destruction, particularly of the plant's key building. Russia has had an ongoing reliance on this site for precision munition components, but its compromised status raises serious questions about its sustainment operations on this frontier. Then to the Ukrainian map, where Putin confirms Russia is gearing up with a security buffer zone along the Ukrainian border, framing it as a new twist in the conflict, though it's an older twist, repeated, more than anything. Reports suggest that over 50,000 Russian soldiers, including elite units, are amassing at the northern border area to Kharkiv, hinting at a fresh push towards Ukraine's second largest city. It's also worth noting in a memory flashback where 12 months ago, talk was all about a looming Russian offensive of 100,000 troops in the northeast with thousands of tanks ready to pound last summer, which does make you question this time around, because this year it's half the troops, suggested, and barely any tanks. There is also the added context of it taking over 75,000 Russian troops and 9 months to repel the Kursk incursion, or most of it. And now on the map to Sumy, bordering Kursk, where the unfolding dynamic of Russia's commitment to the north is growing, taking the bait with these multi-front offensive operations, with their consolidating of the grey zone land up to Sumy's Basivka settlement, just beyond the border there. It's an interesting move on Russia's behalf, because if Ukraine had to choose where Russia was to expend their forces, Ukraine wouldn't be choosing the Donbas or Zaporizhia. They'd instead be choosing the very northern fronts, where Ukrainian brigades are permanently stationed at anyway. Take, for instance, the first half of last year and the year prior. Russia took Bakhmut, then Avdiivka, but after the northern multi-front, and even where Russian forces stepped up their offensive rates in the east quite considerably just this year, their successes found in the east amounted to nothing especially of note this year. There has of course been the attempt on Pokrovsk, and the same for Kupiansk, as the Russian army had expected a lot more from themselves, but they had to do it all with a lot less. Then further down on the map, some Ukrainian channels have reported earlier on the liberation on the outskirts of the village of Torsk. Then just further below here, we see the very common case of a Russian BMP-1 putting on another of those catastrophic detonation shows. Just by Toretsk, surely a few TM-62 landmines were on board, in typical fashion. And do note that TM62 mines, they don't require the pressure from a heavy vehicle to pop off. Instead, secondary explosions, for example artillery, mortar, grenade blasts, or another mine exploding nearby, can cause them to detonate, with the phenomenon called sympathetic detonation. Then to take a look at the Pokrovsk axis over the weekend, at the highway, the situation remained relatively steady with no changes noted, although just adjacent to this front, most concerning for the AFU would be the expanding of Russian forces in the grey zone east of Alexandropol, headed towards Romanivka, with the express design to close this gap, which is 2 kilometers wide and 5 kilometers in length. To take it would put Toretsk in the east at further risk, although not instantaneously, given the terrain with a settlement and river between the 2 points, making the trek more difficult, which has already been noted by this closer and smaller garrison to Toretsk that's still holding up for quite some time now. Then headed across to some news for today, and in a sweeping move marking the largest prisoner swap since Russia's full-scale invasion, Ukraine and Russia have exchanged 1,000 POWs, each in a carefully orchestrated series of 3 separate exchange operations over a 3-day period. The swap deal, struck during tense negotiations in Istanbul earlier this month, shows a flicker of human leverage amid the ongoing conflict. Russian officials are now poised to submit a peace proposal following this event, but most analysts will surely indicate, or should indicate, it's likely to demand nothing less than Ukraine's ceding of multiple territories, a shrinking of their defense capabilities, and otherwise leading to their long-term capitulation. For now though, the swap brings relief to these Ukrainian families. Meanwhile, the footage from the Russian side always somehow looks decidedly more bleak in nature. I wonder why. So ending off on that light note today, although I can't help myself, and so to quickly show you more of the latest of the in-field technology of the Russian forces from another one of these training videos of theirs, educating their upcomings on how to use another of these pull carts in offensive roles. As such, it really looks to be more than just a passing phase. And even note the bottom right logo saying Batrachka, which is Russian military slang used precisely for describing a makeshift or improvised utility cart employed for transporting equipment or supplies. It's already in their vernacular. The glove fits. So that's it for today, guys. Thanks again for watching. Please continue to like, comment, and I do hope to see all of you guys there in the next one. Cheers!